I want to welcome everybody to the first edition of the Agents of Inclusion podcast. My name is JR Jackson of the JR Sport Brief Show on CBS Sports Radio. And right now I'm being joined by Renee Manfredi. She happens to be a Special Olympics athlete. She is a global messenger for Special Olympics. And Renee, I got to tell you, I am thrilled that you're here with us on the very first episode. We're going to talk about your background and who you are, what you currently do. So first of all, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me here. I can't wait to share my story.
Now, absolutely. I think as a big start, you have such an amazing background and so many different life experiences. Let's start off with what you currently do. People think about Special Olympics and they go, okay, this is a one-off event. People don't realize that there are Special Olympics events that take place year round in every state, in every city. And you happen to be a global messenger for Special Olympics. What does that work entail for you? What does a Special Olympics global messenger do?
Thank you for asking. A global messenger is a public speaker. It's part of the athlete leadership program. In that training, you learn how to put a speech together. You learn what public speaking is, how to present. You also learn the three parts of a speech, which is the opening, body, and closing. And you have to learn who your audience is. That's really key. Sometimes speeches you give are thank yous. Some of them are encouraging speeches, like, we want to encourage you to continue to support and sponsor us. That's what a global messenger is. That's the role.
Absolutely. And when we thought about this podcast and everyone agreed on the name Agents of Inclusion, we can think about the word agent. It's someone who helps bring about change, is someone who helps move things forward. And we want everyone listening to be an agent of inclusion, an agent of change. When I say Special Olympics, what comes to your mind? What is Special Olympics to you?
Special Olympics to me is, well, acceptance. My whole life, I was, as I like to say, stuck on the outside looking in, feeling alone, like I was the only person in the world that was different. And then Special Olympics opened its doors, and it was a whole new world for me. I was greeted with hugs, warm embraces, love, encouragement, support, and opportunity. And those were things that I never experienced on the outside.
Well, let's talk about that, Renee. If we go back, your dad served, correct me if I'm wrong, he served in the Navy for a long time. So you're a military kid, right?
Yes, I am.
And bouncing around, where's some of the places that you lived? I know a long time in Hawaii, you're currently in Texas. Where's some of the other places that you've lived?
I had the opportunity to live in the Middle East, the Kingdom of Bahrain, for 4.5 years. I've lived in Rhode Island, pretty much a couple of states on the mainland, but I would say of the places that I lived, Bahrain was the most unique. And then there's Hawaii. From those two places, I learned what diversity is. There's so many different cultures, and you fall in love with it. And then there's where inclusion comes in.
Absolutely. And it's difficult for anybody to travel around that much and make new friends and go to different schools and just be in different environments. I always say that experience is the best teacher when you get to meet different people, but that would also come with its challenges. What was it like trying to meet different teachers and classmates? How was that experience for you?
Most of my teachers were eager to work with me. However, there were those that took a look at my IEP and they weren't keen on the idea of working with me at all. The classmates were a challenge. I was what you would call mainstreamed my whole life until my senior year in high school. But it was a challenge. There were those that wanted to be my friends, but there were those who made fun of me, ignored me, talked over me, and it was tough. It was really, really tough. The only thing I had to go on was my faith, and that's what kept me going. Without it, I probably would have given up a long time ago.
Well, I can speak for all of our listeners here. I'm glad that you didn't give up, because I think as people are going to learn here, you are a major inspiration. You've spoken openly about living and having autism. And you've talked about how people will talk to you and they don't even believe it. They'll just kind of brush it off and say, "Oh, you'll be okay," or "You'll be fine. You'll be fine." What is that like, trying to be like in the middle where you're trying to tell people about your experience and they kind of brush you off?
It's it's frustrating, and it's kind of makes me wonder, well, what's the point of me sharing this disability that I have that you can't see or hear, but it's there? And what's the point of me advocating for myself if you're not going to give me the support that I need, or even believe me for that matter? It's a real struggle.
So as you went through your school years and then you moved into being an adult, where was that introduction for you with Special Olympics? Did you get an email? Did someone call you? What was that introduction like?
My mom and I actually talked about it, and it was just something that we had heard of in my previous state, and we were curious about it, and my mom recommended it to me because there wasn't anything else out there. I wasn't what you would call qualified for home and community-based services. They said I was too high functioning, too low functioning, and all that. And I admit I was hesitant to join because my past experience has been not really one of fun. I'm not what you would call athletic or talented in sports. And so that was my hesitation. But my mom said, in her words of wisdom, what have we got to lose? If we don't like it, we won't go again. So we took that leap of faith. We went, we joined for the basketball season, and I have never looked back. I was welcomed with warm embraces, the spirit of aloha. We became ohana, which is family.
I love that. Does your mom are there a lot of words of wisdom like that? I think that's something that we can all hold on to. You look at a situation, you think about it, and then you go, what do you have to lose? Like, what's the worst that could happen? I like that.
There were plenty, mostly faith-based. She was always there to hold my sister, who was also a victim of being bullied, my older sister, and me, and wipe tears, and always remind us that God has a plan for you.
I
Those
love
were always her words of wisdom.
And when you talk about family, well, for all the years that you spent in Hawaii, right now you're in Texas. We'll get into life in Texas now. Ohana means family. What does that mean to you? Is that just the people in your employ? You consider that the Special Olympics community? What is Ohana? What did you learn while you lived in Hawaii?
I learned that ohana could be anything. It's not just your blood family, that's just part of it, but it could be your community. In my case, it was our Navy ohana for a bit till my dad retired. And then, of course, there was the Special Olympics ohana. Everyone there is family. Your friends, your brothers, your sisters. You know, it doesn't matter where you come from. You could come from a different island. Everyone is there. You give high fives, you give hugs. Ohana and the aloha spirit is everywhere, and everyone wants to share it. Family means to me community, acceptance, love, embracing a person just as they are. That's what Special Olympics did for me. They accepted me where I was at, who I am, just as I am. My whole experience in school had been you have to be like everybody else, you got to act like everybody else, you have to keep up like everybody else. And in the Special Olympics world, that none of that is there. They just take you as you are and they go, okay, we'll work on that. We'll build you up, or we'll
I,
take you where you are.
I love that individuality. You know, just to share a brief story. I've been able to work with Special Olympics as a volunteer dating back to when I was in school, just by going out and playing basketball. For me, it was a fun way to get school credit and then play ball. I didn't care who I was playing with or against. It was a fun experience. But I remember back in 2015, I was in Los Angeles at the World Games, and it took place at the convention center. And I remember walking into the convention center, and it was just everybody having fun. And I loved it because whether you were an athlete from Idaho or Florida, there was Dikembe Mutombo just having fun. It was Christy Yamaguchi having fun. It wasn't like status. It wasn't this is person is more important than that person. It seemed like a family where everybody kind of had their own role and their own part just for everybody to be together, really.
Exactly. That's how I feel. It was the same at the 2018 USA Games too. I had the opportunity to compete there with Team Hawaii. Everyone was excited to meet us. I learned that Alaska and Hawaii are very rare. One of the traditions for the World Games and even the USA Games is pin trading. When they learn you're from Hawaii, they will come up to you, no matter what you're doing, and say, "Hawaii, you want to trade?" And it doesn't matter where you come from. Everyone's friends. Everyone cheers us on. It's fun. It's ohana. It's family.
Family. So when you finally got involved with Special Olympics, you and your mom said, let's go ahead and try this out. What sports did you participate in?
I'm glad you asked. I'm what you'd call a year-round athlete. My first sport was basketball. Then I tried out for softball, swimming, and then soccer.
Awesome. And then yeah, I don't want to short sell you. You got some awards. You got a gold medal, don't you?
I do. I actually got it was so cool. We came back with a gold medal at the 2018 USA Games, something I never expected or saw coming. It was so much fun. And I always carry it with me to like special events, such as Stay at the Capitol or even our Cheer for Champions in Hawaii, which is kind of like Breakfast for Champions, but different. You know, they say bring your medals, and that's the one that I would always grab.
So even now today, how active are you as an athlete in addition to being a global messenger?
I would say fairly active here in Texas. I am in the middle of my basketball season. I do compete in swim. Track and field is still new to me, but yes, I'm very active.
Now, you talk about being in Texas now. There's a big difference, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a big difference between being in Hawaii and being in Texas. What has this experience been like for you in the Lone Star State over the past several years?
It's definitely different weather-wise. I do miss the clear blue skies, the water, the mountains. There's so much of Hawaii to miss. But the add bonus here in Texas is that this is where my mama is from, where her parents are. This is the closest we've ever been to them, considering we're a military family. And it's just so much fun when we have free time on the weekends. My mom will ask, "You want to go to Grammys today?" And I'll say, "Sure, I do." It's just so much fun.
I
And
can
the Special Olympics is a huge one. There are like 4 delegations, north, south, east, west, and I've been involved in several Breakfast of Champions, and that's been pretty fun. It's just been such a interesting experience, unique compared to Hawaii.
So you're saying in Texas there are 4 different divisions of Special Olympics just by itself?
Yeah, there are 4 areas. I'm sorry, I got the word wrong. Areas of Special Olympics Texas statewide. And there's like a lot of athletes. I would say maybe over 30,000. It's a pretty big state. I think Texas is our second largest, so they're everywhere.
That's awesome. I always try to tell folks when discussing Special Olympics that it's not just one event or 2 events. Here's summer games, here winter games. Like there are activities that take place all year round everywhere. And there are different opportunities for people to volunteer, to play, people of all levels and different abilities. Do you have a favorite story throughout your time that stands out to you? Is there a favorite experience that you've had with Special Olympics?
My gosh, that's a really tough question, but I think my favorite experience was just getting to go to the USA Games in Seattle. That was the first time I'd ever been there at that level. I never saw it coming. It was such a rare treat, and it was just so cool to see all the athletes coming together from different parts of North America. And then there was the World Games. I went there as a Sergeant Shriver International Global Messenger. And the best part for me was, as I mentioned, for the USA Games, was seeing everyone from around the world come together for one common goal, the competition of sports. And it got me to thinking, if people can come together for sports, then anything is possible. We just have to strive for it.
Absolutely. I've always found that athletics is really something that can bring people together, as you just said. You know, people don't think about skin tone or color or gender or what city or state you're from. when you say, hey, let's just go out there and play. In a simple way, what does inclusion mean to you? What would the world look like if everyone was inclusive?
Well, I can honestly say in a quick sense that if everyone was more inclusive, there wouldn't be that individual on the outside looking in. That used to be me. I was always on the sidelines of life. I know what it's like to not be included in pretty much anything. Most of the time, we pretty much had to beg just to be a part of something. So I know what that's like. And so if the world were more inclusive, there wouldn't be that person on the sidelines. Everyone would be involved, everyone would be included, and the world would be a better place. And we wouldn't be seen as individuals with disabilities. We'd be seen as people with abilities.
I absolutely love it. I find a lot of times, whether I'm on air or in person or speaking tours, people who don't know about Special Olympics, once you tell them about it, they start going, well, I didn't know that. Well, I can participate this way. Well, I don't know if I don't have to coach. I can hand out food. I can do this. What would you say to someone who's finding out more about Special Olympics, but they feel like, they don't know if they want to jump in? What advice would you give to them?
My advice would be to see that if they really want to get involved, to look up the Special Olympics on the website and to just tell them, if you don't feel comfortable being a coach, you can certainly be a volunteer. And if you want to be out there with the athletes, you can sign up as a unified partner. There are so many avenues in Special Olympics.
Well, Renee Manfredi, you've had so many experiences just because you took a chance and you jumped in, and you've had the benefit of being all over the world. I've seen some of your work. A couple of years ago, you sang the national anthem at a Boston Red Sox game. What was that experience like?
That was both exciting and nerve-wracking. I was pretty scared, but it was such a rare treat. One, because that's where my dad is from, so that's his home team. And two, it was such a unique experience. I've often always wanted to try to do something like that. Sing the national anthem. I know for the most part, there are all kinds of celebrities like Whitney Houston who's gotten to sing at the Super Bowl, all kinds of people. But to be there as an athlete for Special Olympics was such a rare treat.
Well, let me ask you this.
To be seen as a person with a talent, a gift that I want to share with everyone is so rare. And that was really what touched me. I'm a person with an ability, not a disability. I think that's the one thing people often see. When they hear you have a disability, the walls are up. They push back and they go, oh, okay. And they immediately come up with a list or things that say, you can't do this, you can't do that. But what about our abilities? What about the things we can do? That's the thing that's missing. That's what Special Olympics looks at. That's the difference. Special Olympics doesn't look at your disability. They look at your ability. I mean, they know you have one and they want to work with you. That's the whole point. But they don't focus on that. That's not the focus. Focus is the ability. How can we work with you?
And that holds true, I think, for all of us. I think everyone individually as human beings, we have things that we're good at. We have things that we're not so good at. No one's going to wake up and mistake me for an NBA basketball player. No one is going to look at, even for me myself, and go, oh, well, he's the greatest artist of the world. But, I talk for a living. I think I'm good at it. And there's always room for improvement in everything that you do. And so I like the fact that you bring up that point. You do so much public speaking. I think you should do more singing. You did an awesome job with that national anthem.
Oh, thank you.
You do so much public speaking. What's your ultimate message, regardless of the audience that you're in front of? What do you want people to learn when they hear you speak?
My hope is that when they hear my story, they will be touched. I'm hoping to reach those who may have felt like I felt on the sidelines of life, wondering, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm stuck. Where am I going to go? I want them to know there is a place out there for them. They just have to keep looking for it and have the faith to keep going forward. My hope is that people will hear me and see my ability, not just my disability, and give people a chance. When our voices are heard and people really listen to us, that's when change is really made.
And you are certainly an agent of change, Renee Manfredi. I got a few more questions for you. Dad is a Red Sox fan. You're living in Texas now. Your introduction to Special Olympics was with basketball. Are there any other sports that you're interested in watching and that you keep up with as opposed to just playing?
Well, my dad may be from the Boston area. My mom is from Texas, so I'm I try to ask curious questions like, okay, how are the Patriots doing? What about the Cowboys? How are they doing? Or if it's baseball season, what are the Red Sox up to? I try to ask curious questions to see how they're doing. My brother-in-law is a Chicago Bears fan, so he really keeps up. He's a dedicated fan. He watches his team, and you can always tell when it's a good or bad day. If it's a bad day, he's a real grump. You really want to keep away from him. But for the most part, I just try to ask, how's your team doing? And he'll say, ugh, they're doing terrible, or they're doing okay.
I hear that. Unfortunately for the Cubs, more often than not, they're kind of doing bad, but they have a season in front of them where maybe they can start to turn things around. It sounds like you have inclusion in your family as well. Everybody's a different fan of something else, huh?
Yes.
That's cool. And then any other hobbies, things that you're into? Are you still singing more? What else do you do?
Well, one of the singing is one of my hobbies. I do love to exercise as an athlete. It's a good idea to keep yourself fit so you can perform well. I love movies. I'm a Star Wars fan, Harry Potter fan, Once Upon a Time fan. I love Marvel, and I do collect Star Wars memorabilia. I'm into pins, not just Special Olympics pins, but Disney pins too. So there's all kinds of things I like to do. And one of the things I got into before I left to Hawaii was stand-up paddleboard. That's actually one of the sports here, and I'm hoping at some point to get involved with that so I can continue to develop my skills.
Stand up paddleboard?
Yes. It's kind of like surfing, but it's different. You're not really riding the waves. You are in a way, but the board is wider and you have a paddle and you just stand on it once you gain your balance. I know for me, I fell several times, but fortunately for me, I had a soft landing, aka water. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fun. And once you really get into it, you can do some exercises on the board. I know for me, I would try to attempt yoga with some balance. Balance is one of the things that I have to work on. So
Wow.
it was fun.
I have seen someone stand up paddleboard in the Hudson River in New York, and I thought he was absolutely crazy. I know if I tried that, I'd fall right over. I got my work cut out for me. But I think something that we can both agree on, and I'm sure plenty of our listeners as well. I love Star Wars. Who's your favorite Star Wars character?
That would be Qui-Gon Jinn, portrayed by Liam Neeson.
You like why? Because he's a wise man of wisdom. Is that why?
Something like that. I don't know. There was just something about his character that drew me to him. I can't really explain it, but it's hey, what can I say?
I hear you. One of my favorite character. I guess he's one of the main ones.
Ooh.
I like Darth Vader.
Oh, he's a classic.
I like Darth Vader. I liked him when he was before he was Darth Vader. I liked him when he was good. I liked him when he was bad. I don't know. Maybe I see a little bit of myself in there, but I try to be good the majority of the time.
Well,
Renee, go
and
ahead.
it's very true. The actor Ray Park Darth Maul made a valid point in one of the interviews. He said that everybody's got a dark side to them, and that's true. It's just a matter of which side you choose to nurture, that and how you're raised. So yeah, I think I can see that we all have a bit of Darth Vader and Qui-Gon and the Jedi in us too.
I can dig that. Well, I want you to leave our listeners, especially for people who might feel a little bit more on the dark side, people who might feel excluded. What message of encouragement would you share to our listeners who feel like they're on the outside looking in?
Don't give up. Don't lose faith. God has a plan and a purpose for you, and the place you're looking for is out there. You just have to keep going forward on the path.
As you keep going forward for all of your many accomplishments, global messenger, multi-sport athlete, speaker, agent of inclusion. What's next for you? What are some goals that you want to accomplish moving forward?
I would like to continue in my public speaking career, wherever or whatever that is. Definitely continue to be an athlete for however long I can. I love the thing about Special Olympics is that there's no age limit. You can stop whenever you feel like it's time or you're ready. So hopefully for me, that will be a long time coming. But I definitely want to maybe look into a possible career with Special Olympics International. As of right now, I'm a paid consultant, which has been extended for another 2 years. But my hope is that somehow, somewhere along the line, I can really give back to this organization as an employee or whatever, because they've done so much for me. And what better way to give back to the organization that has changed my life and to the God that has led me here than to work with them?
You've done an amazing job at such already. With your role as a global messenger and all your travels and every place that you've been, is there a place that you want to go that you haven't been yet?
I would love to go to Egypt. There's so much history there, and after watching the movie Cleopatra, you're just so drawn to it. Alexandra, Thebes, there's just so much history. And I know a little bit about Egyptian mythology, about the deities. I can easily, mostly, if they're not too worn away, point them out. But I think it would be so cool to go there. My second option would be Greece. Again, there's so much history. New Zealand, I would love to see the movie spots there from Lord of the Rings just to say, hey, I've been there. I mean, there's so many places I would love to go, but Egypt is definitely on the top of my bucket list. And
And
God willing, we'll get to go.
and is there one place, not somewhere that you lived? You've lived in plenty of places. Is there one place that you've already been that you visited and absolutely loved it?
Ireland. I've had the opportunity to go to Ireland in 2018. We did Northern Ireland. If I have a chance to go there again, I would love to see the southern part of Ireland, see what that's about.
Awesome. And favorite foods, any type of cuisine? I mean, food is different in Hawaii versus Texas versus Bahrain. Is any type of food that you really love?
I'm half Italian on my dad's side, so there's plenty of Italian. My grandmother would make lots of pasta big enough to feed an army. But I do love Oriental food, Japanese, Chinese, Thai. Indian's okay so long as it's not spicy. I'm not keen on that. I do love pizza. I love the American, Mexican. I love hot dogs, hamburgers, the traditional American food. But definitely, I love Oriental food and Mexican, Italian. It's all there.
The next time we're in the same city, we got to grab something to eat. Okay, Renee? I love to eat. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us, Renee. You have an amazing story. There are going to be a lot of folks who are inspired by what they've just heard. And we don't want people to just listen into this show and this podcast every week. We want people to get up and be inspired, to be active. And so you coming on and joining us has certainly helped move people in that direction. So I want to thank you here for being our first guest on Agents of Inclusion.
Mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much. It was such an honor to be here as well. Thank you.
Thank you.